Coming up on New Day at Arirang, South Korea set to see yet another day with around 300,000 new cases of COVID-19 as the spread of Omicron continues unabated. Accumulated cases have now topped the 5 million mark, meaning a tenth of the country's population has been infected with the virus. The US says North Korea's two most recent missile launches were aimed at testing a new ICBM ahead of an actual test in the near future. In light of this, Washington working on even harsher sanctions against the North to try and hinder Pyongyang's weapons programs as much as possible. Plus, 3 hospitals in Ukraine have been hit by Russian bombs in the past 24 hours in what that country's president has described as a war crime. Russia dismissing the reports, calling them pathetic deflection attempts from Ukraine and the West. This as Russian forces intensify their attack on key areas in Ukraine.
Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of New Day at Arirang. It's 8 a.m. March 11th here in Seoul, South Korea. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kim Mo-gyan.
And I'm Mark Broom. Over the next hour, we will be taking a look at the big news stories of the day and get expert insights on the issues facing Korea and the world. We start, though, with the COVID-19 situation in South Korea. The country has seen a drop in the number of new cases due to fewer tests happening on Wednesday, the day of the presidential election here, but experts still forecasting another day with around 300,000 new infections on Friday.
This comes as authorities plan to make adjustments to the testing process to prevent any delays in treating COVID-19 patients. For more on this, our reporter Choi Min-jung is here in the studio with us. Good morning, Min-jung.
Good morning.
So what are we expecting for today?
Morgan, we're seeing a slight drop in the number from yesterday, so we're expecting today to reach the 300,000 mark. From midnight to 9 p.m. Thursday, South Korea saw close to 260,000 cases. It's around 46,000 fewer than what we saw the day before, but still up by 13,000 cases on week. The decline comes as fewer tests were done on the presidential election day on Wednesday. Health authorities say the peak of the Omicron wave will likely last for the next 2 weeks and cautiously predicted that cases will be on a downward trend from then on. But for now, officials are on alert with increasing infections among those aged 18 and under as they make up 1 in 4 new infections.
Now, authorities are also going, or planning to at least, acknowledge the results of rapid antigen tests for COVID-19. The hope is that this will reduce the reliance on PCR tests.
Right. Authorities will be announcing today whether or not they will approve rapid antigen test results as being official. Health officials have said PCR test results are positive 90 to 95% of the time following a positive rapid antigen test. So they're saying there is that much accuracy. This only applies to rapid antigen tests carried out professionally by medical experts at hospitals and not the self-test kits done by people at home. Authorities say there are more benefits to the simplified testing measure, as currently people are required to take PCR tests after testing positive from a rapid antigen test, creating delays in medicine prescription and treatment. But they also did acknowledge that there is a possibility that positive cases may be missed using just rapid antigen tests, so they are considering PCR tests only for people deemed to be high risk.
But Min-jung, we also hear that authorities are also considering easing measures for travelers coming in the country.
Right. Also today, like you mentioned, officials are likely to review exempting self-quarantine for inbound travelers. But this will likely only apply to inbound travelers who have been fully vaccinated. The easing of the measure had been discussed by KDCA Chief Jung Eun-kyung since the end of last month. And she said that the country has reached its goal of stemming the flow of the Omicron wave variant from overseas by mandating quarantine for foreign arrivals. Authorities said the measure will be eased as soon as a decision is made.
Okay, so we had the election here in South Korea on Wednesday. We now know the president-elect is Yoon Suk-yeol. Many people here are wondering, though, what changes might come under his administration to the virus prevention measures.
Well, Mark, we can't be too sure as of now, but we are getting the sense that President-elect Yoon will be lifting some of the current measures. Yoon had been critical of restrictions on businesses like restaurants and cafes, stressing that small business owners must be fully compensated for all their losses. He said that he will discuss the matter with Presidential Transition Committee and also mentioned that around 50 trillion won, or around $40 billion will be injected to support owners hit hard by the pandemic. Pundits say that social distancing measures as well as restrictions on business hours are also likely to be lifted. And what's also being anticipated is the possible lifting of mask mandates outdoors with a more flexible measure for indoor mask mandates.
Well, it seems like big changes are expected from May. Min-jung, thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Moving on now, South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea's two most recent missile tests involve the regime's new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-17.
The ministry said Friday that the assessment was reached after thorough joint analysis with the United States. A senior U.S. official also said the regime tested its new ICBM system ahead of a possible full-fledged ICBM test and confirmed it to be the same missile first revealed 2 years ago during a military parade in Pyongyang. The official added the U.S. Department of Treasury will reveal new steps Friday that will help prevent the North, quote, accessing foreign items and technology that enable it to advance prohibited weapons programs. North Korea confirmed the launches in late February and early March, but claimed they were aimed at developing a spy satellite. The news comes as the North state media reported that Kim Jong-un visited the satellite test site on North Korea's west coast that is capable of launching ICBMs. World leaders have been congratulating President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol on his election win. The first to call was President Biden of the United States, and in their call, they reaffirmed their two countries' alliance. Kim Da-mi has this report.
President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden in their phone call on Thursday morning reaffirmed this hard-Washington alliance, which the White House called a key pillar of peace, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Biden also congratulated Win for his victory and said he hoped to deepen their cooperation in tackling global challenges such as climate change and the pandemic. He also said that South Korea has played a core role in supporting Ukraine. According to the White House, Yoon and Biden also pledged to work closely together in response to the threat posed by North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. In a statement released by Yoon's People Power Party, Biden asked Yoon to visit the White House after taking the office, which Yoon welcomed and hoped to meet Biden at an early date. The call was originally scheduled for Friday, but they instead connected at 10 a.m. Korea time on Thursday upon Washington's request. That's just 5 hours after the National Assembly accepted the election result. Earlier, the White House reiterated that the alliance between South Korea and the U.S. remains ironclad. Watchers say a Yoon-Biden summit could take place as early as May in Seoul, on the sidelines of Biden's visit to Tokyo for the Quad Summit, though nothing is set in stone amid the crisis in Ukraine. Welcoming the election of Yoon as South Korea's next president, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also expressed hopes of working closely with Yoon to rebuild healthier ties between the two neighbors. According to Kyodo News on Thursday, Kishida underlined that it is fundamental that promises between nations are kept as a way to improve the currently icy bilateral relations. Kishida also told reporters that good Seoul-Tokyo relations are essential for world peace and stability, and that he looks forward to Yoon's leadership. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
People in South Korea are curious as to which men and women the president-elect will appoint as his key aides. Leading the transition team could be An Cheol-soo of the People's Party, who relinquished its candidacy to support Yoon. However, Yoon's chief of staff has been virtually confirmed. It'll be the man who led that merger. Lee Kyung-eun reports.
With his election campaign officially dissolved, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol is now on to forming his new team, tasked with launching his administration of national unity. The transition team, once it is formed, will be launched soon.
We haven't had time to think about the transition committee yet, but I will make a plan as soon as possible and launch it quickly.
Once launched, it will be the first presidential transition team in a decade, as incumbent President Moon Jae-in took office immediately following the impeachment of his predecessor Park Geun-hye. Top of the agenda for Yoon's transition team will be a pandemic recovery plan, which was also his #1 campaign pledge. Now a lot of attention is on who will actually lead the committee. It's highly likely to be An Chol-soo of the People's Party, given the remarks made when he and Yoon announced their campaign merger.
Candidate Yoon and I will work together closely, from forming the transition team to making a joint government with people from all political factions.
Yoon, in a press briefing earlier in the day, declined to comment on the job possibly going to An. It's also thought the job could go to one of two former campaign executives. While things are still largely uncertain regarding the transition team, it's clear who's likely to be his chief of staff. That'll be lawmaker Chang Jae-won of the People Power Party, who was the key figure in Yoon and An's last-minute merger.
Chang played a decisive role in achieving the merger with patience and perseverance. He enabled Mr. An and me to trust each other.
Yoon, during a meeting with Moon's chief of staff Yoo Young-min, described Chang as his chief of staff. All these officials could be confirmed in the coming days. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Entering the third week of the war, Russian forces are pushing to take control of Ukraine's capital. Fighting to take control of main routes to the city is intensifying, especially around the north. This as civilian casualties are mounting, with at least 70 children killed. And a meeting to secure evacuation routes for them has failed to produce a breakthrough. Kim Sang-min with the details.
Fighting is intensifying around the Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. As Russian forces push to within a few miles of the city's outskirts, heavy battles are being seen on major routes to the capital, including the main highway. According to the Kyiv Regional Administration on Thursday, the north remains the most dangerous area, including suburbs of Bucha and Irpin. Russian troops have launched several attacks from the northeast and east in an effort to encircle the capital over the past 2 days. These attempts were repelled by Ukrainian forces. U.S. officials believe that Ukraine will be able to maintain control of the capital for a few more weeks. The number of civilian casualties is growing rapidly. A Ukrainian parliament official said Thursday that at least 71 children had been killed, with more than 100 wounded in Ukraine since the start of Russia's invasion on February 24th. The death toll was announced amid growing international scrutiny over the bombing of a children's hospital in Mariupol on Wednesday. 3 people were killed, including a young girl. The UN Human Rights Office says at least around 550 civilians have been killed in the invasion so far, though the real figures could be considerably higher. And diplomatic hope was blighted yet again. A meeting between the two countries' top diplomats held in Turkey on Thursday failed to result in any breakthroughs. The talks came as Ukraine sought to evacuate residents trapped in hard-hit areas like Mariupol, but attempts to create a humanitarian corridor in the city failed. There, Ukraine's foreign minister reportedly delivered a clear message that his country will not surrender. Meanwhile, the leaders of Germany and France on Thursday demanded a ceasefire in Ukraine during a 3-way phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. They have reportedly told Putin that any resolution to the war must be negotiated between Ukraine and Russia. European leaders gathered Thursday local time outside Paris for a 2-day meeting to discuss over the situation in Ukraine. Kim Sang-min, Arirang News.
Now it's time for Onpoint, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories in the spotlight right now. Russia is being excluded from the sports world as punishment for its war against Ukraine. Russia's national and club soccer teams are now barred from international matches and tournaments, including the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The IOC and numerous other individual sports governing bodies quickly following suit, kicking Russian teams and athletes out of their respective competitions.
The UEFA Champions League final that was scheduled to be held at St. Petersburg's football stadium has been moved to Paris, and the Russian Formula One Grand Prix set to happen in Sochi in September has also been canned. For more on Russia's blanket isolation from world sport and its potential implications, we connect to Yoo Ji-ho, sports journalist at Yonhap News Agency. Good morning, Ji-ho.
Good morning.
Now, over the years, President Vladimir Putin has carefully crafted his image of himself as a president whose love of sports and competition knows no bounds. So given this, could these sports boycotts be just as damaging to him politically as the economic sanctions?
Well, I think it's difficult to really compare the impact of economic sanctions versus sports bans, but if anything, I think it's kind of embarrassing to President Putin himself on a personal level. If you just look at the example of judo, he'd been a long-time practitioner of judo, the martial art, but he's been stripped of all the roles within the International Judo Federation. He's no longer the honorary president of the organization. He once created a judo with helping him stay off the streets and teaching him discipline, but he no longer holds any role within that governing body. And if this has been damaging to Putin, obviously he's not shown any signs that it has, and there's no indication that he's going to have a change of heart all of a sudden. But for me, I think it will hit a little close to home for Putin, and seeing these the athletes from his country being barred from the international stage, it's obviously not going to be too pleasing to him, and he himself has been ostracized from the international sporting community, and I think it's not about to stop. I think there's going to be even more organizations that will take the same step going forward.
Now, Ji-ho, as most of us know, sport really brings a nation together like little else can do. Ordinary Russians on the street probably don't really care that the Russian Formula One Grand Prix has been scrapped. But you'd imagine that they would like to see Russia play in the World Cup finals. Out of all the sports that Russia is being banned from right now, which one do you think hurts Russia the most and why?
I think FIFA World Cup is huge. They are the previous host of this tournament, which is basically the biggest event in football, if not in the entire sport. And, I believe they were still alive in the qualifying campaign in Europe before this ban happened, and now they're not going to be able to play. Just given the magnitude of the World Cup finals, I think this will probably hurt them the most. Maybe right below them will be the UEFA Champions League final, which, a lot of people would argue probably the second largest football match this year, behind only the World Cup final in Qatar. So, like you said, ordinary Russians might not care too much about maybe Formula One Grand Prix, but football, just because it's such a global sport, and Russia hosted a previous World Cup less than 4 years ago, I think it's going to really hit it home for the ordinary Russians.
Now, Ji-ho, the economic sanctions on Russia are also having an impact on sports. Or the one case is the Roman Abramovich, the billionaire Russian owner of Chelsea. He wants to sell ASAP, but the UK just announced sanctions against him. So tell us more about the Abramovich situation and its possible implications for other oligarchs that own sports teams.
Right. He was under a lot of pressure to sell the club as soon as he could, and he recently announced he was going to sell it sometime this summer. Apparently, there are about 20 bidders who already, try to buy this club, and it's not often that a team like Chelsea is up for sale. This is not just your ordinary average football club. Since he bought this team back in 2003 for about $20 million US, he spent a lot of money on top players and coaches, and they've started winning a lot of trophies. 21 in my count, I think, since 2003. So, there are other oligarchs, other Russian sporting owners, politicians, companies that have been banned. I think that the number is around 100 around the world. Britain has been a little slower in terms of sanctioning these oligarchs and other elites from Russia. Just because of the legal process of getting them sanctioned. But Abramovich was one of the I guess, the higher profile figures to, make this move. Also, he's got this a little bit of a connection with President Putin. So that added, I think, pressure on his shoulders to make the move. And, I think we're going to see other similar moves from other sporting owners from Russia in the other parts of the world.
Yeah, under the new sanctions the UK government has put in place, Chelsea no longer allowed to buy or sell any players, even their hotel, which is part of Stamford Bridge, their stadium. They can't even accept guests or even sell a cup of coffee because of these new sanctions. So really biting on Abramovich. But finally, though, there are people out there, non-Russians as well, that are saying that these sporting boycotts are just going too far and at the end of the day might actually push ordinary Russians who might be opposed to the war in Ukraine further towards Putin, because it's really solidifying this kind of us versus them, that Putin is really trying to make the Russian people feel is the way right now.
I think it's a fair point. I think one of the unintended consequences of these sporting bans might be that it's going to give the Russians the siege mentality. It's going to only maybe galvanize these people that, hey, we are surrounded by these enemies, and they're going to maybe encourage the national solidarity within Russia. Sports bans, if you look at some of the history, have not always worked. And it is fair to wonder what banning these athletes in sporting competitions really accomplishes. Maybe we're making innocent victims out of these athletes when it is Putin and his military are the ones attacking Ukraine. But as far as raising awareness of the situation, I think sports bans can be quite effective. And there's also symbolic influence to having these sports bans just because how visible these events are. I mean, we mentioned the World Cup, Champions League finals, and Grand Prix. These are pretty visible events for even the ordinary citizens. They might not follow politics and military affairs as closely as some of the other people.
All right, Jiho, thank you so much for your insights. Hope you have a great rest over the weekend.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
The European Central Bank has kept its benchmark interest rates unchanged at 0%, announcing it will end its bond buying program faster than planned, aiming for early in the third quarter. In a statement Thursday, the ECB said the decision was reached considering the economic fallout caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It added the decision will be revisited if needed. The surprise move comes as there are concerns over possible stagflation in the Eurozone as consumer prices have climbed to record highs for 4 consecutive months.
The U.S. Consumer Price Index soared 7.9% on year in February, marking a fresh 40-year high. According to the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics, the acceleration was the fastest seen since January of 1982, when the U.S. economy faced the twin threat of skyrocketing inflation and slowing economic growth. Energy prices jumped 3.5% last month, accounting for roughly a third of the gain. BTS returned to the stage in South Korea on Thursday night for the first time since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. 2 more shows are scheduled for this weekend, which will be live streamed online or be available for live viewing at cinemas around the world. Kim Hyo-sun with this report.
Their first in-person concert in front of Korean fans in over 2 years. BTS made a triumphant return to the stage at Seoul's Olympic Stadium on Thursday, kicking off their first of 3 shows as part of their Permission to Dance on Stage tour.
We used to film our performances just putting cameras in front of empty seats. However, with the army in front of us, we are so touched and excited.
Fans were not only required to wear face masks, but were also prohibited from cheering, screaming, or singing along.
As we've been waiting for this moment for ages, I hope everyone follows the anti-coronavirus measures properly and are happy. I love you, BTS.
While the venue can handle up to 70,000 people, attendance was limited to just 15,000. Nevertheless, this was the largest in-person audience in South Korea since the onset of the pandemic. Thursday's concert was also streamed live for fans who could not make it to the actual show. BTS will perform 2 more shows in Seoul on Saturday and Sunday, with Saturday's concert to be broadcast at movie theaters in some 60 countries. Following their shows in Seoul, the group traveled to the U.S. for in-person concerts in Las Vegas in April. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Welcome to Dialogue this week. In this corner, we invite guests from in and out of Korea to talk about a wide variety of issues, ranging from culture and sports to the latest trends around the world. Now, like we've just heard from our previous report, just yesterday on May 10th, South Korean superstars BTS kicked off the first day of their 3-day concerts titled BTS Permission to Dance on Stage in Seoul. This will be the septet's first in-person concert in Seoul since their world tour performance in 2019, and the first such concert to be held since the COVID-19 pandemic reached the shores more than 2 years ago. Despite South Korea seeing huge numbers of infections every day, tickets sold out immediately as fans were eager to be able to see their favorite members face to face. The Culture Ministry gave the green light for only 15,000 people to attend each of the 3 live music events as a virus prevention measure. Tickets to watch concerts online live streams also sold out in flash. So how did the first day go? And what more can we expect from the boy band this year? For this, we're joined by Jeff Benjamin, journalist and K-pop columnist at Billboard, and David Kim, creator and founder of DKDK TV, a YouTube channel that digs deeper into the Korean wave, both via Skype. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Well, let's start with David. The concert on Thursday was the largest scale event approved by the South Korean government since the outbreak of the pandemic, the first in-person concert since 2019. David, can you start us off with the fans' response from last night?
Oh, yeah. So I haven't been to the concert myself yet, and I'm planning to go on Saturday. But from what I've been seeing and hearing through social media and my friends that actually went, the fan response was explosive, and it was a mix of everything. I think it was like an emotional roller coaster, happiness, tears, amazement, and more. And I think definitely it being like the first in-person concert in 2.5 years would have added more emotion to the fans, of course. And also seeing BTS perform songs like On that were meant to be spectacular performances, created particularly for offline performances, gave a lot of amazement towards the ARMY, and everyone was definitely excited. And all in all, I think the fans were mostly overwhelmed with emotions to be able to see the boys at last and gathering in that stadium with light sticks and such. Yeah.
Wow, I can't imagine. It must have been a big night for them. But David, a BTS concert involves more cheering and screaming or singing than a sporting event. The Seoul Olympic Stadium has a seating capacity of 70,000 people, but attendance for the concert last night and for this weekend as well is limited to 15,000. So what measures were taken on the scene in terms of efforts to prevent the spread of COVID-19?
Oh, well, first of all, as you mentioned, the seat restrictions would be one of the biggest measures. And it's kind of sad that each concert was restricted to a cap of 15,000 because for a fact, I would say there are 10 times that number of ARMY that would die to go see that concert. And because of the limited seats, only 45,000 people could go to the concert and watch BTS, so it's kind of a bummer. But besides the seat caps, there were also restrictions such as no screaming or singing, and of course masks were mandated. But yeah, there were so many complaints about the no chanting and screaming rule because honestly, BTS concerts or any concert is about jumping, screaming, singing along. And in the case of BTS, there are signature chants and ways to sing particular songs, which is one of the biggest concert experiences. But ripping that part out really messes with the experience, in my opinion. But despite this, I was really amazed how BTS maintained a very positive mindset because they were like, "Oh, this is our first time having a silent clapping concert, but we'll just try harder to give you good energy, and it's just great to see you guys in real life." So yeah. Other than that, I think they had clapper thingies to substitute for the screaming, and I guess that was better than nothing. Yeah.
Well, let's turn to Jeff then. This in-person concert took place despite the Omicron wave that's setting new records for new daily cases. How do you see the significance of that not having hindered the concert from taking place?
Yeah, I think it's just totally a testament for sure to just the excitement and sort of the importance that BTS has as performers. I was so lucky to actually be able to see their first concert back when they came to America in Los Angeles, and I remember it was a emotional show, but you could really just tell how happy the guys were and how important it was to be back with fans and be able to give those stages, give those great performances once again. And I think that speaks to something maybe much bigger than just being able to sell out a certain amount of tickets or be able to have a huge gross, which we know BTS can do. We know how amazing the numbers are, but really beyond that, it was just so uplifting and so wonderful to be able to have those performances again and be able to meet in person again. And I think that significance is much larger than anything beyond the numbers, beyond something like that. It's being able to come back and show that, the significance of music and the significance of these performances. I think that goes beyond, any numbers or anything of the sort like that.
Jeff, also, following the Seoul concert series this weekend, BTS will also have their in-person concert in Las Vegas next month after attending this year's Grammy Awards. So how has this been received stateside?
Yeah, it's a really cool moment for them because Las Vegas has definitely become a really big music city. So many artists have residencies in Las Vegas. Adele even is creating her own Las Vegas residency performance right now. It's become a really big music city because Las Vegas has always been a really fun city, a place that you go to have fun. And it's also become a place where you go to see special shows. Now, of course, BTS's concert has totally sold out. It's as to be expected from BTS. The tickets sold out right away. And the most amazing part actually was that it actually sold out to only fan club membership. Tickets were originally available first for members of the Global Army Fan Club. And actually, those tickets entirely sold out just from members of the Army and members of the fan club. So even though, many people, they go to Las Vegas and they say, oh, we'll check out a show tonight or we'll come for this person in this show, it's become such a destination and BTS has such significance for their live shows in America that actually the general public didn't even get the chance to buy these tickets. So to say that it was well received is almost an understatement because they really had a huge hot response.
Well, it really is a huge privilege to be in there. Well, in 2020, BTS set a Guinness record for attracting the most viewers for a live stream music concert. And the ongoing concert series is also available online streaming, and separate tickets were sold for that. And the Saturday night concert is scheduled for live broadcasts in movie theaters around the world. So David, you said you're going to be there. Do you think this is going to become a part of post-COVID concert culture, or this is more a transitional accommodation?
In my opinion, I think it's definitely going to stay for a while or even permanently. I'm no industry expert, but if you just think logically, there's no reason for the companies to get rid of online streaming or the theater experiences. It's such a huge additional revenue source. And also for the fans, it's beneficial because fans that cannot get access to the concert physically, they can have some kind of way to enjoy the concert as well. And I personally think it's really good because it enables the concert to reach as many fans as possible, especially considering how global BTS Army is. For example, like a fan in, say, Alaska could attend the concert thanks to the streaming. And also, from what I know, in Korea, the demand for the cinema viewing was so high that cinema companies issued thousands of more tickets to match the demand. And I mean, with all the high tech going on with the concerts, like the multicam, the Bluetooth, synchronized light sticks, and real-time subtitles, all that kind of stuff, I think online streaming or theater experiences are not such of a bad option compared to the real concerts as well. So if you can't get your hands on concert tickets, might as well go to theaters or enjoy the online streaming.
Well, like we just said, since BTS is holding a concert in Seoul over the weekend and the boy band is also set for another series of shows in April in Las Vegas, I'm curious, do you think anything would be different in those concerts? And also, are there any distinctive differences between Korean fans and fans from overseas?
Well, unfortunately, as a Korean, since there are less COVID restrictions in the States, the energy will obviously be different. The crowd size and the screams are probably going to be incomparable to the Korean concerts. And also, out of experience and what I've heard throughout the years, I think there are some differences between Korean and international fans. For Korean fans, I think they're a little more unified and like to be very organized in the chanting and cheering, while I think the international fans tend to be a little more wild and free during concert settings. And also about Korean fans, there's the daechang culture. You might explain it as the singing along culture. In Korea, it's pretty huge, and I'm not saying that international fans don't sing along, but since most of the lyrics and songs are in Korean, it's easier for Korean fans to fully follow the song in sync with each other.
Wow, I would like to have a chance to attend both concerts if I can. But we slightly mentioned this earlier, but the Grammy Awards, after being postponed due to COVID-19, have been set to be held on April 4th. So Jeff, why do you think it is that even after having such a blockbuster year, BTS only landed one Grammy nomination? They released 3 #1 singles last year.
Yeah, and we talked about this, I think, a bit last year too, and it was definitely a discussion being had. Where is that larger recognition? And the one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the Grammys is that it is the one award show that is not based on numbers or sales or charts or anything like that. It is decided by a larger academy and a voting academy at that. But that being said, I too was a little disappointed. I truly thought that Butter was going to get some more larger recognitions, especially in the Record of the Year category, which specifically recognizes songs that have had a larger impact as the song themselves. So the biggest #1 song of the past year in America not getting a recognition on Song of the Year, it's a little suspect. But it's unfortunate, but I think it's created a lot of larger discussions just about why artists of certain areas or of certain minorities aren't getting that larger recognition. And that when BTS, when they're just going to come back, I think, with even better music, when the heat gets put on them, more music, better things are going to come. So I think that while it's unfortunate this time that they didn't get those additional recognitions, which I think were very much deserved, at least very much in the Record of the Year category, I do think, hopefully this is all creating larger discussions, larger opportunities for BTS to be able to do even better in the future.
Yes, indeed. Well, David, you might remember that many fans were disappointed, like what we said when the award that BTS was nominated for at last year's Grammys for the track Dynamite was given to Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande's Rain on Me. What do you think things would look like for this year?
So I think it's positive to see them get nominated consecutively by the Grammys in a general fields award category, but I honestly don't know whether they'll win or not. Jeff might know better, but not because they don't deserve a Grammy or anything. As a fan and even objectively, I feel like BTS is already overqualified for a Grammy at this point, considering all their records and all what they achieved on global charts and their influence among the global music market. But nevertheless, the Grammys were always kind of very conservative and authoritative with their own standards about what quality music is and with their exclusive Grammy committee votes. So I honestly have no idea whether BTS will receive an award this year. But on top of that, if you look at the competitors, some I remember are like Doja Cat, Justin Bieber, Coldplay, etc. So it's definitely not going to be easy. But again, Billboard Butter was on Billboard #1 for like 10 weeks straight, and it did get a AMA as well. So I think this is their biggest shot in getting a Grammy. And but at the end, not the Grammys don't matter that much. I think BTS is overqualified, and they don't need validation at this point. So yeah.
Right. But even so, let's hope for the best.
Yes.
But before we let you go, Jeff, tell us about BTS merchandise, with the group now having a collection at Nordstrom. Is this a collaboration that came in time for the Las Vegas concert? And what kind of merchandise is being sold?
Yeah, well, and the thing to recognize here is that not every musician and artist can easily get a merchandise line in a place like Nordstrom's, which is in, every state. It's very well known, very well recognized around America. You really do need to have that larger mainstream appeal to not only land your merchandise and land your products in a place like Nordstrom's, but also to be able to successfully have it launch like that, and to get the excitement and the hype around that's already been happening with the line already. So it's really cool to see. There's, everything from the really, really obvious BTS merchandise that is specifically, has the guys on it or might have their logos on it, to things that are a little more subtle, that are inspired by their music titles or their song titles or their albums. It's a really cool mix of different products that fans are going to be able to see, and also hopefully just the general consumer might be able to get interested in, whether that is taking something that they like, the sweater or they like the shirt or school merchandise, whatever it might be, and being able to kind of recognize and wear BTS proudly, whether you're a fan or not. I think it's a really, really cool move, and definitely something to show sort of that larger recognition and that larger mainstream appeal that BTS has in America, for sure.
All right. I'm afraid we will have to wrap up at this point, but thank you so much for making time for us, Jeff and David. We'll look forward to speaking to you again after the concerts as well.
Yeah, let's get that Grammy. Come on.
Now, earlier this week, Arirang News Center had the opportunity to speak with South Korea's first medalist of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Since he has time on his side, the speed skater says he's aiming to compete at the highest level for at least 4 more Winter Games. Han Sung-woo with this report.
There's a reason the press calls him a monster on ice. Beating competitors overwhelming him in size, South Korean speed skater Kim Min-seok placed third in the men's 1500 meters to bring home his country's first medal of the Beijing Winter Olympics.
The short track speed skating competitions began well before I won my bronze medal, and I think everyone in Korea, including me, expected the nation's first podium finish to come from the short track squad since they're such a powerhouse. Of course, a series of unfortunate events prevented that from happening, but all in all, it was a great honor for me to win my country's first medal in Beijing. It makes it more special.
Making it even more special is that Kim remains the only Asian to win a medal in the event, a feat he first accomplished 4 years ago in Pyeongchang 2018, where he claimed his first Olympic bronze medal. The 22-year-old also received praise for showing good sportsmanship in Beijing, giving one of his rivals, who finished off the podium in the 1500 meters, some sincere words of encouragement following the race.
I never imagined that simple act would attract so much attention from the media. It just came out of instinct because Ning Jong-yan is actually a close friend of mine. We're both 22 years old and he's a nice guy who I often chat with, so I felt the urge to offer my emotional support. I think he was deeply disappointed that he couldn't perform up to expectations when it mattered most in front of his home crowd in Beijing.
For future competitions, including the next Winter Games, it's likely Kim will no longer be competing in what's long been one of his main events, the 5,000 meters, to focus more on the shorter distances.
I'll now be focusing on the 1,000 meters instead of the 5,000 meters. By honing my skills in the 1,000 meters, I believe I can make up for the shortcomings that I have in the 1,500 meters to perform better at the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics 4 years from now.
It's the next step of a long-term plan he set for himself moving forward. His ultimate ambitions? To compete as an elite Olympian, possibly a gold medalist, until 2038, when he'll be nearly 40.
I've dreamt of becoming an Olympic champion ever since I laced up my first pair of skates as a kid. That's the goal for Milano Cortina 2026. And once I do win that elusive gold medal, I'm going to try to defend it multiple times and just endlessly improve as an athlete. That's why I plan on skating in 4 more Olympics before calling it a day.
한성우, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now it's time for a look at news from around the world, and for that we turn to our Lee Seung-jae, who's joining us live from Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
So, Seung-jae, let's start off in Chile, where the country saw its first same-sex marriage, certainly a historic moment.
That's right. So we're looking at Chileans Javier Silva and Jamie Nazar becoming the country's first 2 men to tie the knot on Thursday after a law allowing same-sex marriage went into effect. The two have been together for 7 years and have 2 young children. While they've had a civil union for the last 3 years, they noted that marriage is a significant step for their entire family.
It's a very important step for our family. Firstly, as a family unit, to be recognized by the whole country as equals, just like the rest of the families around the country, just like any other family. That's a dream come true for us, and so to be the first ones is a historic moment.
Now, despite Chile clinging onto a long conservative tradition, the country has been making progress in recent years in recognizing LGBT rights. Now, in December last year, Chile's Congress approved legislation guaranteeing legal rights for same-sex couples after a decade-long battle by LGBT communities and rights groups. Now, over in Brazil this time, activists and indigenous groups protested on Wednesday, rallying against President Jair Bolsonaro's environmental policies in the Brazilian capital of Brasilia. Dubbed Earth Event, the rally was called by popular singer Caetano Veloso and dozens of other Brazilian musicians who urged legislators to stop what they called the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. Now, indigenous people also protested against the use of pesticides in agriculture. The rally comes as the Bolsonaro administration and the National Congress are pushing for a set of mining bills that would endanger the Amazon and the indigenous land. Now, a 57-year-old man who made history as the first person to receive a genetically modified pig's heart died on Tuesday at the University of Maryland Medical Center. David Bennett received the transplant on January 7th, but saw his conditions deteriorate several days ago. The surgery was among the first to demonstrate the feasibility of a pig-to-human heart transplant made possible by new gene editing tools. The hospital says Bennett was fully informed of the procedure's risks. Now, in December, the U.S. FDA granted emergency authorization for the surgery in hope of saving his life. And finally, arguably one of the greatest to play the game of golf, Tiger Woods was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame on Wednesday. During a ceremony at the PGA Tour headquarters in Florida, his 14-year-old daughter Sam introduced him for the induction, while Tiger delivered a speech about his career and those who helped him along the way. Now, in his Hall of Fame career, he's won a record-tying 82 PGA Tour titles and 15 major championships, trailing another golf legend, Jack Nicklaus, and his 18 major titles.
Good morning. After a colder than normal February, it feels like we're skipping right onto April. It's forecast to be warmer than yesterday, so Seoul will see a high of 18 degrees Celsius this afternoon with wide gaps of over 13 degrees. It's easy to come down with a cold around this time, so take well care. Air quality, however, remains bad in west of central regions and some of the southern provinces, while a dry weather warning remains in place on the east coast. Morning temperatures are 1 to 7 degrees higher than the same time yesterday under partly sunny skies in most parts. Then highs will be similar to slightly higher, Seoul going up to 18, Daegu, Gwangju topping out at 20 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Much anticipated rain is in the forecast to help the conditions. Rain will start from the capital and Gangwon-do this weekend, which will spread nationwide. Speaking of rain, we had the least amount of rainfall last winter since 1973, when the weather record started. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that's all we have for now, but we'll be back at 8 a.m. Korea time Monday for a new edition of New Day at Arirang. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm Kim Mo-kyan.
And I'm Mark Bream. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you as always for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.